Okay, 7 o'clock. Call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, February 11th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Miller, Rosado,
Here.
Beck,
Here.
Knopf, Chancet,
Here.
Barron,
Here.
Wolf,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Callahan,
Here.
Meitzler,
Here.
Malay, Ewer,
Here.
Cerrone,
Here.
and McFadden.
Here. You can hear it.
Sounds like
Okay. As a reminder too, we have, as we just heard, speak up for BATV. Next up on the agenda is approval of the minutes for January 14th.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Chancet, second by Ewer. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Here it is. Okay. Next up would be items to be removed, added, or changed.
None.
We're going to keep it as is. Okay. Next up would be matters for the public. Okay. Hi. Nobody's here from the public. Okay. Next up will be a continued public hearing, establishing a special service area for Area 42 for the Nagel Industrial Park PUD Farmstead 3 development. Do you want us to just open this and continue it? Is that what we're doing, or?
Yes, this is the continued public hearing, and we're...
Sorry, Scott, we have a problem in that it says 7:30. We can't start the public hearing before.
No, that was the original. That was the original public hearing time. So we continued it when. That's an error on the agenda, but that when we continued it, we continued to tonight's. I mean, you can wait if you want.
Is that what was published, 7:30?
We didn't have to republish; it was just continued. The original. Remember, it was in front of City Council.
He's right.
So
What?
It's a continuation. The initial publication was accurate.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're right. If not, we can always open it. Okay. So you just want to continue it?
yes, we'll need a motion to open it and then continue it for 2 weeks.
So moved.
Second. Motion to open the public hearing made by Jansit, second by McFadden. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
open. And
Motion to
then,
continue.
Motion continue by
To-
Callahan.
February 25th.
February 25th. Yes.
Okay,
I thought I heard a second already.
what?
I thought I heard a second already.
Okay. Second was Rosado, so Callahan and Rosado. All those in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it's continued to February 25th. And next up would be the consent agenda.
Your Honor, the consent agenda reads as follows. Item A, Ordinance 20-17, annexing 323 Evergreen Drive. I would move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second. Okay, motion by Jansit, second by McFadden. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carries. Then next up will be Ordinance 20-04, establishing Special Service Area 42 for the Nagel Industrial PUD Farmstead 3.
As we are pending the public hearing, I move we table this until February 25th.
Second.
Motion by Callahan, second by McFadden. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tabled.
Okay. And next up will be Ordinance 2015, revising Title 5 of the Municipal Code regarding fees for non-emergency medical assistance. Hello, Chief.
Hi.
So I've been telling you about the number of lift assists that we've had and how it's grown over the last couple of years, and how a significant portion of them, at least 1/3 of them, are at either senior centers or ones with staff in order to assist the residents there. Like I said, about 1/3 of them are at those facilities, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to alleviate some liability on their part, and that liability comes over to the city by us having to go there and lift the citizens up off the floor who aren't injured. We're not transporting them to the hospital. In many cases, we get up there and a person from the facility is standing there waiting for us, rather than helping the person. And so then we lift them back into the chair or back into the bed, and then we leave, kind of a thing. But I believe that liability has some cost to it, and I am proposing a $250 fee for lift assist at those facilities in order to help offset the liability on there.
Okay, anybody have any comments?
I guess just a question, this is, the way that this is written as the facility is getting charged,
Yes.
not the individual who is
That is
looking
correct.
to be
Yes.
assisted.
Yes. And honestly, I sit as the city's representative on the Tri-City Ambulance Board, and we've discussed this at Tri-City Ambulance meetings for the past several years. Finally instituted a fee at the Tri-City Ambulance level, and a lot of the facilities that are out there just realize this is a cost that they don't have to incur. They don't want to spend $50,000 a year for an employee, plus medical benefits, plus, medical benefits beyond the employment term if somebody hurts their back or anything else happens. I don't think we're going to see pushback from the facilities because they know that we could be there 100 times a year and it'll cost them so much less than what it would be if they had to have an employee on site to do it.
Well, and I guess either way, I'm supportive of this because either way, it's additional staff we may have to have if this growth continues. It's additional wear and tear on the fire trucks. It's obviously passing on the liability if we were to help someone and they were to be injured. So, yeah, I'm generally in support of this.
Dan?
Just curious if we had any comments at a staff level between here and Homestead or any of the other properties.
I left the director over there a message. It was about a month ago when I was first going to bring it to the council, and I never got a call back. And then I ended up having a meeting with them on another topic, maybe about 3 weeks later. I think it might have been Legionnaire's disease or something like that I met with them on, and we discussed it briefly, and they really didn't have much of an issue.
I can also say that Mayor and I have had lunch with the executive director, and the topic came up, and she didn't express any concern with it.
Okay.
Nick?
First, I'm surprised at the numbers, that it's only a third. We take those out, and we're still
Over 200.
higher than Geneva and St. Charles, even without that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I have the numbers in front of me, and we have like about 3 residents in town that don't live in those facilities. They live in their own home, kind of a thing. And we're working with them, but they've had some issues, either due to age or due to a physical disability, to where they've fallen quite a bit over the last year or two. And we're working with AID to try to get them better facilities at their own home, or to find them a place to where they can live without falling so often, kind of a thing. So, but we do have about 3 residents in town that we do have a significant amount of falls with.
So that was my next question of, can you break it down? So those 3 take up another third?
The 46, 18, and 14 and 10, so 24, so right around 100,
Wow.
maybe just shy of 100. And it's four people actually, not 3.
Next, I was surprised to see most of the towns that you listed on here did have fees for citizens. At this point, you're not proposing that?
I am not. I'm pretty sympathetic towards when they're at home. Many times it's a senior citizen who, you know what, at some point they haven't quite made up their mind that they can't live independently anymore, and it's a tough choice for them, and they're trying to live at home, and I'm not trying to make it any harder on them. I will try to get them assistance, and we try to encourage them and everything like that, but I'd rather do it that way rather than trying to charge them.
No, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I was just surprised that all those examples, they all had citizen assist fees, but only 2 of them had
Yes.
assisted care fees. But I'm in support of your proposal and what you, your belief system, so I agree.
Mike?
The chief So if you have a truck go out to one of the facilities to help, how long does it take to lift the person up and get them situated where they're safe again?
I'd say by the time we get the call, it takes us maybe about 4 or 5 minutes to get there. We're there maybe about 10 or 15 minutes. We have to do a report on it and everything else like that. And then we're back in service, and I don't know, I wouldn't count the time going back to the station or anything like that, but maybe about 15, 20 minutes.
So if it's an overweight person, a large person, and they're struggling with the person, and then there's a fire alarm comes in, what happens?
If they're already on the scene, they stay there and finish up with the patient there, and we have auto aid coming in from other towns to help. If they're on their way there, my officers know to break off, go to a more urgent call, and let a backup unit take the lift assist over at wherever it might be.
It just sounds like it's the thing to do, is to let these facilities to be more dependent upon themselves, so we're not taking our resources where they may be needed in case of a large fire.
I agree.
I mean, so I agree, like with Nick again, I would definitely support this.
Anybody else? I will make the motion that we send to council Ordinance 2015, revising Title 5 of the Municipal Code regarding fees for non-emergency medical assistance.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Cerrone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Now that item and the next two, I all have for you to bring back to the March 2nd meeting, because I won't be able to make it to next week's meeting in case you had any more discussion, so I could be here for it. If it goes on a consent agenda, I really don't, but I don't think that one will go on a consent agenda.
I think we should talk about that one so that everybody's aware of it. And I think it's something that, at least from the Tri-City Ambulance side, they've been talking about this for a long time. We're actually going to review it in a year, see what kind of fees we've charged and assessed and how the numbers are, if they change at all after we start charging for it. Because that may, some of the smaller facilities may not want to pay that. The big ones, I don't think, are going to complain about it. But I think it's also something we have to do for cost. I mean, we have to charge for that. Okay, next up will be Ordinance 20-16 as to surplus property.
This is a Ford Expedition that is over in ESDA. It's been there. It came from the fire department, went to ESDA, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. It has 106,000 miles on it, 21 years old. It's got some electrical problems. It's got some rust and stuff like that, and we're looking to surplus it.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. I will make the motion that we recommend a council resolution, Ordinance 20-16 as to surplus property, one Ford Expedition.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That can go on consent.
Which consent would you like that on?
We could do that the next meeting. And then the one previous, that'll be March 5th, you said?
Second.
Or March 2nd. Okay. Next up will be Resolution 20-15-R, intergovernmental agreement with the College of DuPage to conduct firefighter applicant testing.
We've been doing that now with the College of DuPage for, I thought I'd said it in the memo, but, the 9th time. So we've been doing it for almost 20 years with the College of DuPage. They do the written test, they do the advertising, the registrations, the correspondence back and forth with the candidates, the orientation, they compile the documents and the certifications, and then provide the test results when it's all done. So it's an all-in-one package. It works really well, and like I said, we've been using it 9 times now.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Something we've done, like Chief said, we've done since I've been on the council. We've used them. Okay, I will make the motion that we recommend Resolution 20-15-R, intergovernmental agreement with College of DuPage to conduct firefighter applicant testing.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That I consent to. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up will be Resolution 20-20-R, authorizing purchase of 3 police department patrol vehicles for $103,044. Hello, John.
Good evening. If anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions on these? I think it's interesting to note that the truck is actually a hybrid version of the F-150, which, what is it, do they call it police patrol package or pursuit?
Police pursuit package, yeah.
Pursuit package. So I'll have to come check that one out after you guys get it.
It'll definitely be a great addition. It'll give us the ability to transport items that we struggle with transporting right now, bicycles, other large items of found property, barricades, street signs, that kind of stuff. So it'll be really good. And the plan is with this vehicle in 3 or 4 years, it'll become our CSO vehicle, and we'll continue to be able to use that for years after that as well.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right. I will recommend to council Resolution 20-20-R, authorizing the purchase of 3 police department vehicles for $103,044.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Callahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, put that on consent. Thank you. Next up will be Resolution 20-21-R, authorizing acceptance of a plat of easement for 1146 Wintergreen Terrace. Anybody have any questions or comments on this?
This has been an ongoing battle for years. And so I've met with a ton of people along Wintergreen Terrace and Kingsbury Court for years now, so I'm glad to see something is finally happening.
I knew you would have something to say. And yes, I am glad that that is happening. It doesn't matter where it is in the city. If it's an issue that we know we have problems with and we need access to it, this is what we need to do.
Well, a lot of the drainage in that area has been designed with the landscaping, and just over the years, the soil is building up, and they're losing their drainage, and that's what's the problem. So I'm glad this is happening.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll make the motion that we recommend to council Resolution 20-21-R, authorizing acceptance of a plat of easement for 1146 Wintergreen Terrace.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by O'Brien. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'll put that on consent. Give you lots to read on Monday night, Dan. Okay.
I practice.
Next up will be a Resolution 20-22-R, authorizing acceptance of plat of easement for 1150 Wintergreen Terrace. Same thing next door.
Absolutely. The neighbors.
So again, anything to happen. So I'll recommend to council Resolution 20-22-R, authorizing acceptance of a plat of easement for 1150 Wintergreen Terrace.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by O'Brien. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go on consent. Next up will be a singular truck purchase. Resolution 20-19-R, purchase of a F-150 pickup truck for community development, not to exceed $27,295. Hey, Jeff.
Hello. This is a replacement vehicle. Actually, this was originally in the 2019 budget and was rolled over to the 2020 budget because we didn't get it purchased by the end of 2019. So this is a replacement for the inspection staff vehicle for building and code enforcement.
I have one question because I couldn't find it in going back and forth between the police department one and this one. This looks like this is like a base truck with the smaller V6 in it, the 3.5, and it shows a 6-speed trans. Did they offer the next level up with the 10-speed trans? I mean, I don't know in town if that's going to make a lot of difference in fuel mileage, because I could not find anywhere in the bid package or anything where it showed if that was a possibility, other than it's listed there as an option.
They did offer, let's see.
Because I know a lot of times when they
Yes.
build these up, they only come one way, and that was a
Yeah,
question.
they did have two engine options with the 10-speed trans. They were more expensive.
Right, about $1,000 more that I saw
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
'Cause and again, I couldn't find the mileage ratings to see if they were markedly different or if they're virtually the same.
I'm not sure. This vehicle is almost identical to the vehicle we purchased about a year ago.
Okay.
And we've been very happy with it.
Because that was the other thing, I mean, noticing that the police department one is actually a hybrid. And I don't think this is, now, maybe by the time we get around to purchasing another vehicle in one of these, there might be the electric version of it available.
Right, yeah, I don't believe this is a hybrid. It does have, our current one, and this is the same, has the, I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but when you pull up to the stoplight, it shuts off.
Okay.
And then restarts when you
Start,
when you start going. So it does have that option, yes.
very annoying, but it works.
Yes.
Less idling
Abby?
is better.
Right, and that's a
And
good thing.
that was kind of the question I had, and thank you for your response too, that wherever possible, if we could see an electric or hybrid option, spec'd out where it makes sense with our fleet of city vehicles. I've got this power to spare. It would be great to use it to electrify our own fleet.
Yeah, and I think too, that's something that we should be promoting. I mean, we've got an idling policy, we've got all the stuff that we do with
The EV
biodiesel and
charger,
everything, and the
rebates.
charger. I think that's a good thing for us to look for, but again, I don't know that that's always available in the packages, because if they're going out and they're spec'ing and trying to put together 10,000 of them to get sold in a year,
Yeah, there is a purchasing, I'm blanking on the name now. There's an electric city vehicle fleet purchasing group. And it's not called that, but it's something I think we would have to sign up for, but it is out there so that we could be in a group deal for electric
right, and
vehicles.
as Gary noted to Twist tonight when we were out at Public Works, all of the hybrid escapes that we have are all about due to be replaced, being 10 or 12 years old.
This is one of them. Yeah,
So,
it was repurposed from Public Works about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So this
so I
is,
think that's something that we should keep, on the radar, that we need to look for those, and even if it is just slightly more, I would like us to try to go that route. Especially all these ones that are running around in town all day long, that
Right.
would be fine to have something like that. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I will make the motion that we recommend a council resolution 20-19-R authorizing purchase of a Ford F-150 pickup truck for Community Development Department not to exceed $27,295.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Ewer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That'll go on consent as well. Okay. And now we come to the tax abatement time.
We have five tax abatements. The memo did a really nice job of laying them all out for us. We are, of course, we have different sources of revenue, and we're paying the bonds in another way. So, for example, fire station, that comes from sales tax. Electric refunding comes from the actual electric revenues. We have drainage and city hall capital projects that do come from the general fund. And those bonds that we redid last year for the fire station are being paid for by sales tax. So this is about $3.7 million in taxes that could have gone on to property tax bills that are being abated. And Peggy is here if anyone has any questions.
Good evening. I just wanted to clarify on here, because the memo states, you'll see fire station on here twice. The first refunding that we did in 2012 was not fully refunded in 2019, so that's why it is on here twice for two different amounts.
There are no questions, then let's take them one at a time. Resolution 20-30-R, a tax abatement for fire station refunding of the 2012 AGO bonds.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent, please. Resolution 20-31-R, this are the abatements for the IEPA 2013 Go Bonds. I move that we approve that.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent. Resolution 20-32-R for the electric refunding of the 2015 Go Bonds. I move we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent. 20-30, I'm getting lost here, 2033? For the drainage and City Hall Capital 2017 Go Bonds, I move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent. And Resolution 20-34-R, that is for the Fire Station 2019 Go Bonds, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent. This is going on the next consent agenda. I'm not going to have to read that. I will be out of town for that one. Start practicing.
I feel it cold.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh, I have the next one.
You have the next one as well.
I do. So this is Resolution 20-29. Thank you, Peggy. 20-29-R resolution of the recertification of participation by elected officials in IMRF. So I did talk to Wendy before the meeting about this. I thought that we had done this before, but this is actually a new state law that requires that the city certify to IMRF of any employees that qualify for the 1,000-hour threshold. Our mayor does certainly more than 20 hours per week, so he does qualify, and we just simply need to approve a resolution and send that off to IMRF, and then we're going to do this every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Sure.
Does this mean that there is a pension for that position?
Yes. With him contributing to IMRF, yes.
Do we have to, where does that money come from that would go into that?
From, he pays his 4.5%, the mayor salary, or the amount pays his 4.5%, and then the city pays the required amount as well.
So how do we get around we have the salary, which is codified, and it says no additional compensation.
We also pay the FICA contribution,
Medicare.
additional
Mm-hmm.
to salary.
And the question came up when they first did this 17 years ago, and the code then said that this didn't qualify, or didn't impact a salary that was already preset as far as this could be paid to somebody that was making a set salary. I remember it. There was a whole big thing about that. Probably dig it up for you if you want, but it was all legal, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure it is. If you're familiar with
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I would believe that that's not considered.
It's not
compensation
compensation.
in the definition. Because it's not
It's a benefit as opposed to a part of his salary.
And I think this is why that was supposed to come up, where we had to vote on it and have it codified every.
Exactly, because at any point, honestly, we could say this is no longer, and then that would be the notification. That's exactly why they wanted that every 2 years, recertifying, saying that this position, because it's elected versus a regular employee, that we are saying that position still qualifies.
So it's possible under a different administration that the mayor might not put 20 hours in a week.
It's possible.
It's possible.
And then that could be changed.
I guess it raises the question, I don't know how much the city clerk puts in for their compensation. I don't know how much time goes into attending the meetings and putting all that in, nor the city treasurer. So I don't know what the certification for those positions would be either.
Do we contribute to IMRF for either of those positions, Peggy?
No, we don't.
Because they would be,
We do
they would
not.
be on this certification then, because we'd have to acknowledge them.
Correct.
So do I have to give you a time card to get on this list? Is that what you're asking for?
So I'll be completely honest, typically hours for an elected official is not an automatic qualification for IMRF versus what a regular employee, there is a set number of hours, and if you are there, you have to pay it. It's purely honestly a decision of the council that was made back in 93, 95?
97.
97. So that for any of the positions, so it is correct, if you wanted to consider other positions, you could review them, make a decision as a council, do it through a resolution, and then we would notify IMRF and start that same process.
If I worked 20 hours, could I turn down the pension if I didn't want it? And say, please don't take a
Correct,
deduction
you
from my
could,
salary?
absolutely. Mhm. Yeah, because there's a section where actually the position signs in and saying they are recognizing that they're receiving this benefit.
Got it. Okay. Any additional discussion? I would move that we approve resolution 20-29-R, resolution recertification of participation by elected officials in IMRF.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent. Thank you.
Next up, we will move on to the public utilities portion of the item
Okay.
22.
This is Resolution 20-035-R, approving directional boring contract with Carlisle Utility Contractors for the Paramount Park Substation feeder reconfiguration for an amount not to exceed $101,351, which includes a 10% contingency. This is the stuff we've been talking about for the last 2 years almost, about Paramount Substation, the Northeast Substation. Gary, you want to get into it?
Yeah, there are lots of different parts to these contracts. So a couple of months ago, council approved a directional boring contract and a wire pulling contract, really for wires that are coming out of the Northeast substation connecting into the system. This contract is for directional boring to be able to put some overhead wires along Paramount underground, and these wires will go into the new Paramount substation. So there's a piece in the middle that both of these are kind of connecting into from either sides. This is just the directional boring. We have worked with Carlisle in the past. They've done contracts for us successfully. So that is why we are recommending them, and with a 10% contingency. This is, again, just for the directional boring and installation of the conduits. We'll come back at a later date for the wire pulling and terminations.
Anybody have any questions?
I just have one comment. I guess the last, I won't name them, but the last bid is it must be really proud of their equipment or their job to bid that high.
Right.
So being in the contracting side of things, sometimes people are just busy. Ray's actually happens to be the boring, electrical directional boring person that did the other job that we awarded.
That we awarded.
They were the lowest contractor on that one. So sometimes you're just busy.
They just don't want to do it, or just don't have time.
Or you're just really busy, and if you get it, it's nothing but gravy. I mean, but you know, because it doesn't take them much time to just throw together a number.
Yeah.
Even if it's
Hire
not
a whole other crew to do it at that price.
Right, exactly.
So Gary, in the budget, we have under this here, like 3.8, in excess of $3.8 million. So this is falling inside of that
It's one of
umbrella.
those many pieces. This is
Right.
the part where Hot and I kind of scratch our heads on a little bit, because the electric industry does it completely different than like what I'm used to on the civil side. The people that do the directional boring and conduit, they don't pull the wire and do the terminations.
Right.
The wire and terminations are what you guys would all think about as more like traditional linemen, whereas traditional linemen don't do the directional boring and the conduits. Those are specialized contractors. So these are all, we could hire it out as one contract, but then that contractor would still have to hire another contractor. So you're not gaining anything. Now you're actually adding that contractor's overhead onto the other contract. So
But it falls under that,
it all falls
that
under that.
umbrella
Sorry,
of
I didn't answer your question.
3.825, whatever that is, million dollars.
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody care to make a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Chanzit, second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We can do consent on that. Thank you, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have, the next one is Ordinance 20-18, declaring certain property to be surplus and authorizing donation thereof. And so we're looking to give that to SEL, Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories for, they've been working with us for a long time, and we want to give them the old equipment that is obsolete for them to train their employees.
This one's unique. I haven't done one like this since I've been here. Typically, when we declare something obsolete for the electric utility, it either goes to the scrap pile and we get scrap for it, or occasionally you guys will approve ordinances to declare transformers obsolete, and then we'll get a nominal amount from a rebuilding company that they rebuild transformers. When it comes to vehicles, we surplus them off, then we sell them on a public auction site. In this particular case, SEL, Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, is really kind of an industry standard for the electronics, for the controls, and for electrical equipment. The city has SEL equipment throughout our system, and really for the last several decades, SEL has been a standard not only in our utility, but if you go to ComEd or you go to the other munis, or really you go across the nation, SEL is kind of the standard. One of the major players, one of the key high quality vendors out there. Anyways, the Paramount substation is being reconstructed. There's old medium voltage switchgear equipment in that station. That's been in that station since it was built, so it's several decades old now. That equipment is still in service in other utilities, but it's pretty rare because it hasn't been manufactured now for decades. So Schweitzer has personnel who will occasionally run across this equipment, but they don't see it very often. So they would like to have the city donate this equipment to them. They will come in and provide all the labor necessary to get it out of our facility, which there's a cost savings to the city for that. We don't have to pay a contractor to do that. And then SEL is just going to use it for training purposes at their facility. And then we had our city attorney draft a release and waiver of liability. Our city attorney has reviewed that and approved that, and as has SEL. So everyone's comfortable with the fact that we will declare this surplus, they'll come in and get it, and it'll be all of theirs, and there's no liability coming back to the city for that. So there's really no worth to this. It would actually cost us to get it demolished, and once it is demolished, there's no worth except scrap for it.
Any questions or comments, Gary?
I like the fact that, hopefully it's helping to train somebody out there that will have to work on that somewhere else. I'm all about trades. I think that that's something that we really have to work on in our area.
And we have a good relationship with SEL, and this will only strengthen that bond. And so sometimes if we're in kind of a bind, they might feel somewhat willing to jump in and help us out. Anyone care to make a motion? Sorry.
What's the scrap value?
Nominal. I mean, you're talking about a cabinet of equipment, probably not much bigger than this podium. You're not talking about thousands of pounds of steel. You're talking about nominal electronics.
Yeah, probably not. $100 maybe, and the labor to dismantle it and truck it out of here would be more excessive. So, anyone care to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Chanzit, second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and we'll do consent again. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, next up is a discussion on streetscape and downtown plan review. Alderman Beck.
All right, passing something out. Take one of each. Okay. Well, good evening. Last summer, the downtown master development plan and the streetscape plan was brought to us by Scott to review and discuss kind of how we move forward with planning for redevelopment in our downtown. The direction from that meeting was to take these plans and review them in a subcommittee and come back with some recommendations on a way forward. So we've been meeting bi-weekly since last summer. The downtown master plan was broken down by Nick, Mark, Mike, and myself, and then Keenan, Mike O'Brien, and I looked at the streetscape plan. The document that you have in front of you is the kind of what we worked on, our working document from that. So we took the very specific recommendations that each plan had at the block by block level and identified whether or not they were already accomplished or no longer feasible or no longer applicable, as kind of a jumping off point to see where we were, and as a way to really refamiliarize ourselves with these plans in general. So what we wanted to bring back to you tonight was kind of the results of that thorough review, look at the goals of each of these plans and see if there's something that we're still, if it's something that we're still going to get behind, talk about what we have accomplished on each of these since they were written. The downtown development plan was from 2002, and it was the result of community surveys, charrettes, an image preference survey where people looked at different downtowns and decided what they preferred compared to another picture or pictures of our town. And the streetscape plan was a consultant with the Streetscape Advisory Committee that came up with that set of recommendations for what we wanted the public realm to look like here in the downtown. So we'll kind of go through what those major themes of those documents have said, and discuss some next steps in terms of short-term projects, midterm projects, and then the fate of these plans in general too. The streetscape plan is currently codified. It's the plan that we are working from. The downtown master plan was replaced by the comprehensive plan, and it is a far more specific and prescriptive plan. So all things to keep in mind. Mark is going to go through kind of what the specifics of those plans were, and then we'll open it up for discussion after.
I hate reading PowerPoints that have all kinds of words on them, but it is important that we go back over what the goals were of the downtown master plan. So I think everybody's going to agree that these things still resonate. We want an economically vibrant downtown. Encourage downtown housing opportunities, encourage public and private investment in downtown Batavia, develop the public nature of downtown and reinforce the sense that downtown belongs to everyone, reinforce the sense of historical continuity in downtown Batavia, encourage diversity of uses, activities, and sizes of development, reinforce the unique character of downtown Batavia, create a safe environment in downtown Batavia. Wait, there's more. Create a comfortable downtown for Batavia, create a hierarchy of transportation, beginning with the pedestrian, and I know we've talked about this a lot, that we're trying to make it safer for walking and biking. So it's good that we keep on talking about that because we thought about that nearly 30 years ago. Actively promote civic art in downtown Batavia. We've done a lot of that. Encourage a vibrant cultural atmosphere, encourage intense street-level activity, maintain a sense of connection to the natural environment, encourage architecture that responds to functional needs and reinforces downtown heritage, and encourage all public and private construction be built as high-quality, long-term components to the urban fabric. So what I like about the downtown plan is it still resonates. I mean, I don't think that when you look at the overall that we would do anything differently today. There's some things we actually accomplished and some things that just aren't applicable anymore. We have expanded some parking. We do have more of the plaza in front of City Hall, the multifamily housing along the bike path. So that's on the other side of the river from here, or the other side of the depot pond from here. Some things that aren't going to be applicable anymore or don't matter. So I don't think we're going to have a public square because Route 25 is not going to be realigned. The RV parking is no longer an issue. We cannot have a view corridor at McKee because there's now multifamily housing in the way of that view. There is a faux water feature, so if you haven't gone through the whole development plan, there was talk of building another waterway through downtown. I don't see that feasible. If anybody disagrees, let me know. Limestone retaining walls around the library. So it was part of the original design. I think there's some things we can do around the library differently to make up for that, but they didn't build it that way, so it's going to be hard to overcome. Still to do. And I think we've heard a lot of these things a lot of times, and we have grants such as facade improvements. And this comes from, if you go through the downtown plan, there is a block by block description of everything we should do in that. So 10 times we said we should do facade improvements. 16 times we said we should have mixed use buildings. 8 times mentioning multifamily housing, and 10 mentions of screens, fences, knee walls, etc. to hide parking lots. There's some pictures up there from the downtown plan, and I think some of these that Abby pulled from elsewhere. No, they're all on the plans? Okay. This is the stuff we talk about when we're trying to get people to visualize what it looks like when you have everything built closer to the road. And I'll have to turn to Scott. I can't remember what we call it. We don't have setbacks. We have build twos, correct? Yeah, build two lines, which is what we're trying to accomplish downtown. So that's more along that first star there on the upper left. Street plan goals. You want to talk about the street plan? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Abby to talk about the streetscape plan, and then we'll start talking about some of the bigger plans.
Keenan's not here. Keenan was going to tag team this with us as well, so I will be Keenan. So this is the goal of the streetscape plan. The underlying goal from the beginning of the process was and remains economic development. This is an all-encompassing goal. However, to create the climate for redevelopment, we have to make downtown Batavia a place people want to be, not just a place to drive through on our way to another destination. Pedestrians making use of our streets will help create the vibrant setting necessary for economic development. I love that goal, so spelled it out for you all. And so what it called for in this plan that we've already accomplished are brick paver crosswalks in a majority of our downtown crossings, which is great, as well as the bump outs, which create that safe haven for pedestrians and a shorter crossing for people to walk across the street. We also have a number of ADA ramps throughout town, still few to do, but we've made really great progress on that. We have a WUNRF, that's what was called on in this plan as well. I love old pictures of River Street before the WUNRF because I just love to see that transformation. And the archway there at River Street as well. The pictures underneath River Street there, I think, is a great reminder too, because I think we're about halfway between these two pictures in a lot of places in town where we've accomplished the bulb outs, the crosswalks are looking great, but we're lacking street trees. That's the reoccurring theme in the streetscape plan throughout, is that it calls for street trees on every single block of every inch of downtown. But we've made some great progress, which is really great. No longer applicable. Again, this plan called for a forecourt to City Hall, a big, beautiful, extensive plaza that would extend, I think it goes halfway through the next building. Decided maybe that was no longer applicable. We have a lovely plaza here in front of City Hall, and I think we should be proud of that. But still to do, so there are still places, and we talked about this recently, where our crosswalks don't have the brick pavers, and it makes such a nice transition and a nice notice to drivers that pedestrians may be present here. So I think it's something from an aesthetics and a comfort and a safety perspective that we should pursue, maybe filling in the gaps every year, have a few crosswalks put in. Street trees are every single block of every single street of downtown is called for, and it's listed, in city urban blogs and studies that it's one of the things that you get the highest return on your investment for such a simple addition. In this plan, there's 14 mentions of street walls, so maintaining that connectivity for an aesthetic, a safety, and just a visual point of view for a pedestrian, that they have something interesting to look at when they're walking down the street. The enclosure creates a sense of safety as well. It has 10 mentions of public art or murals, 9 mentions of consolidating curb cuts. So you see in this picture of Water Street here, it could use some filling in of curb cuts. Downtown on Wilson has a number of curb cuts as well, which does cut down on the comfort level for pedestrians and biking. 3 mentions of pedestrian scale lighting and 7 mentions of signage. Wayfinding is a big theme, but now that we have a logo, we're going to move forward on wayfinding. So that's really exciting too. Goals. You want to jump in on the goals?
So when we look at some of the goals, some of the things that we can do pretty quickly is the potential of having a streetscape advisory committee, which would just be a group of us or others outside of here. They could talk about which things do we want to start attacking in there. Some of them are very easy. Every time we're going to pour a new sidewalk, we should be looking and making sure we have the trees and the benches in that. That was a big part of the downtown plan is, and the streetscape again is the trees. I know that there's a tree audit that's supposed to be going on. I don't remember the details of that. And also having an audit of our benches. Are the benches in the right places? Are the benches being, are there enough benches, et cetera? Bike parking is obviously coming up if we're going to have the bike share program. That where are we going to put those, and where do we have other avenues for bike parking? A big thing would be an incentive for property owners to add boundary walls, railings, et cetera. I think if you look down in this picture especially, the difference that a boundary could do in front of Berkeley's there would be phenomenal. I mean, the way it can screen that parking lot would just make that look better. Plus, it gives a little bit more sense of security to pedestrians as they walk along there. They don't feel like, hey, there's a car in the parking lot coming right at me. They see the bushes there. We already have a good banner program with Main Street, but we were thinking that what if we were to get some larger banners in the same vein and have them at some of the more prominent locations as you enter town? Don't want to compete with our new streets, our new welcome signs, but something again that we're not going to have the welcome signs at every roadway entering town, but maybe in the meantime we could do something else to have banners that allow people to understand, hey, you're entering more of a business district or downtown Batavia. With the public art installations, one of the things we talked about a lot was whether there's some sponsorship opportunities. What if there were somebody wanted to sponsor some artwork in an area, and there's a little plaque there of some sort saying, hey, this artwork sponsored in part by Funway. I don't know, I'm just naming something. And that way, that would give that business person the ability to contribute to something, and then it would give us more chances of getting more public art on more corners. Tree funding, I know Abby was talking about, there's other communities that have some ways of raising more money to install more trees in town. So that's something we could do with the tree commission. And I can't remember, it might have been Nick came up with the idea of a literary walk along Water Street right along the library. That maybe there's something, plaques or something in the pavement or something, whereas people are walking near the library, you kind of, when you're walking down there on Water Street, you don't see the library. So how do you bring attention to it so people understand where they're at? And then something kind of interesting in that vein. Midterm zoning updates. Obviously, that's going to have to go through a lot of meetings back and forth with Plan Commission, a lot of work for staff to do these as well. We keep on talking about parking minimums and maximums, but we haven't done anything. So we need to start taking some action there. Setbacks or build tos, making sure that we have those everywhere we want them. Sidewalk widths, are they appropriate everywhere? So that we make sure that we have the right sidewalks for everybody. Do we have parking lots in the right locations? Do we need to buy some more of the parking lots so we can develop them? Encouraging housing as part of every development. This goes into, the DMU districts so that we are trying to get people to think housing, because that's what's going to make our town more vibrant, is that we have more people downtown. We asked Scott to take a look at form-based code. He's looked at Yorkville has that, which is more along the lines of we don't care what you put there, just as long as it looks in this, it looks like what we want to prescribe. That way, it doesn't really matter, just that the buildings going up look nice, so to speak. And one thing that actually Scott was also excited about is possibility of rezoning South River Street. If anybody's driven down there recently, I go past there every day. There are at least 2 places for sale now on River. There's some businesses that have moved out. Is it the time to say, hey, we don't need that industrial area anymore? It's not a great entryway into town. It might be a time to rezone it. Whoever's there, and you're still there, you get to keep that. But if you're going to sell your property and improve it, then that's the time that we do something where it's maybe a DMU or something. Long term, this is, again, parking said maybe we start buying some things. We were in a phase for a while where we didn't want to be realtors, but maybe we have to buy some of the parking for redevelopment. Identify blocks and make small improvements each year. Again, this goes to around the library. It needs some cleanup in the brush around the library, so what do we do to start cleaning up those areas and make it look nicer? Marty and I were trying to talk about sidewalks for a while, so setting a schedule of adding new brick crosswalks every year, where it's, okay, we're going to do these 2 crosswalks or this 1 crosswalk each year, so we know for the next 5 years or whatever, which crosswalks are going to get done. I think the next point, the identifying a ombudsman for downtown, I think that's the new position that we have. We interviewing yet?
We said that it's not going to be a position until the second half of
Second
the year.
half, okay.
So in March, we're going to probably post
it, okay.
position.
Again, somebody to help drive more of the downtown businesses and inquiries and everything. And replicating the WUNRF, extending it further north. Abby put it as the 3rd bullet point there because she would like to see it on Island Avenue or Water Street first before we start extending it on River Street more to the north. I think in any of these, we also have to look in the public-private partnerships to try and get some help in those areas, because we can talk about the success in River Street and hopefully some of the private industries are on board with saying, yes, I want that in front of my business too. Next steps?
So that's kind of a quick review of those very dense documents that detail what we could or should do with our downtown. So now is kind of the question of what should we do with our downtown, or what should we do with these plans? And the question that Scott had posed to us last summer too is, do we scrap these plans? Do we just, stick with the streetscape plan? Should we get a new downtown redevelopment master plan now that stuff is starting to move downtown again, which could cost, 6 figures, which seemed daunting. And I think there's my opinion, this is going to be open for discussion, is that there's enough we could do with the plans that we have that we don't necessarily need to start from scratch with them. That the streetscape plan is still a really great document and a guide for a common design language on how the downtown should look and feel from the public realms, from within the public realm. So I would say that my biggest push and my biggest ask probably from this process would be some sort of a streetscape committee that could do quarterly reports like the strategic report, that could execute a tree audit, a bench audit, work on these partnerships with the library or the environmental commission or with Water Street to do public art, and start having those conversations based on priorities set by this group. And something then to also push, because pedestrianism was such a focus and intense street level activity is what's really required for any downtown area to flourish and provide the productive tax base that we need it to provide for us, is that we have to start looking at every downtown project or every project throughout town as from the perspective of a pedestrian. How does a person get to this place? Not necessarily how do they drive here, how do they park here? It's how does a person interact with this place, and are they safe? Are they comfortable? Is it aesthetically pleasing? And is it somewhere they want to be? And so to look at, things even just like the boardwalk shops as being, the next thing popping up in our downtown. So that's our recommendations. We have other slides that kind of detail what some of those other partnerships might look like, but we don't necessarily need to get into that right now, but I can if it comes up, and would just love anyone else's thoughts at this point.
Dan?
Who would be on a streetscape committee? Are you asking for a subcommittee of council members that would report to community development? Are you looking to involve more people, or is it still a planning level at the city council level right now?
The original streetscape committee that you appointed was a mix of citizens, aldermen, staff, and then representatives from different civic organizations.
Right, so are you looking to reignite that committee?
That's kind of
Or
what,
keep it at the council level?
that's kind of what I was thinking,
Yeah.
that it would be not a huge group, but something workable and manageable, but that incorporated other people, but it's up for.
We were committed to a streetscape at that time.
Yeah.
So that's why we had the involvement of all the folks, the residents, the businesses. Now we're just trying to come about to focus on where we're going. So I would say we keep it somewhat small, and then when we say, yes, we're gonna do this, we can start bringing more people into it to get what we want.
It could be on a project by project basis that we bring in
Absolutely.
other people too, and we keep it to ourselves. I don't know.
I mean, and it's okay if small, it could still be people outside of the council. Absolutely. I would champion that.
I think people are interested. People would.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of people downtown. I mean, I've been having conversations with some folks about streetscape areas and what to do, and there's been a lot of positive feedback. So I think there's a lot of interest in it. And we got to get people who are interested in it now to buy into it, and they'll be our salespeople. They'll be selling it to the rest of the.
The reason for my question was I'm trying to understand how you keep it moving forward. So we need to keep it moving forward. So if it is a few council members and some community members, then we should be reporting back actually maybe more often than quarterly.
So I'm just going to kind of say that's why kind of all of this kind of started was, having taken with Nick over the community development, we've got new people on that it was, well, we've got all this low-hanging fruit that's out there. Why aren't we moving for that? In a lot of the discussions with Abby and Keenan and everybody, it became, we've got the big projects, and then there's this lag time that just normally happens while you're waiting for that big thing. And I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this, because that's, to answer your question, this is the next step, which is identifying all those things that we can be working on. And since a lot of this is all community development, I know that's what we're going to be focused on, and it's just delegating people. Now that Abby's going to have to recuse herself on other things, I've got a lot of work. But a lot of it is that thinking of, kind of stemming from what Scott brought to us last year, and got my thinking even with the chalets. Look how fast that moved when we were like, it's low-hanging fruit. Why aren't we doing it? Abby's mentioned about the civic art programs. Why aren't we doing stuffing like that? Going back to even when Dave Brown was here and was advocating for a lot of the close the street and, think differently, and what's wrong with trying stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of small things that we can be trying that we will succeed in, that don't cost a lot, that will get immediate results, that will always show big project, a lot of things continue that momentum, leads to more projects, never lose the momentum, always keep doing.
I look at it, and especially as a lot of the pictures that were there popped up, some of the older shots of the streets and the different things we've done. We also need to keep in mind that we're going through a lot of the streets in town are going to get work. Main Street, Prairie, Wilson Street and Prairie is going to now get the rework of the railroad crossings. So, this is all stuff that we need to have that ready to go and say, okay, are we going to commit to spending an extra $100,000 on this intersection to make it look the way we want it to look when we do this? Because that's the reality. If we can do it at the same time, it's going to cost us less money to do it then and continue the continuity of the things that we wanted to do downtown, but haven't been able to branch them out into each and every block. If we're working on those blocks, even if they're not connected yet to the other ones, that's the time we need to do that. That's the time we need to do the crosswalks. That's the time we need to do the wider sidewalks and, the different ideas that are there so that those things happen. And then anytime any development happens, downtown. We have to have the plan ready, so that way if somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm gonna buy these 2 buildings here and I wanna redo everything out in front of it, that's the time that we need to have that streetscape plan ready to go, that we can hand it to them and say, this is what it's gonna look like. This is what we want it to look like. And here's how we can help you get there. So I think it's really important that we try to get this, again, keep it moving, but have this stuff ready and have a committee that if all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, hey, we're gonna redevelop half of this block on, Main and 31, we're ready to do that. We're ready to say, this is what we'd like to see when you go to do that. Elliot?
So I was just going to say, at least to the first item up there, which is just, staring in the face as it's been left up there. No, I don't think we need a new downtown plan, especially not at a cost that, we already have something here that is, I think, more than sufficient towards a framework of what we're looking to do for both the downtown and the streetscape. And I agree. I think we already have a lot of good traction going with many of these initiatives. I think it's a matter of continuing those initiatives. Maybe it's a matter of prioritizing those as far as where we may like to see them occur first. I kind of liken that to the Safe Routes to School program. We could put sidewalk everywhere, and that would take as long as it's going to take. And we've heard estimates of over 50 years, and maybe that won't even get us there. But does it make sense to put sidewalk everywhere, and does it make sense to just start attacking it left to right or top down? Or no, let's be strategic about where we put it in. But I do think, to Alan's point, we've got to align it as well to where we're naturally already looking to resurface, refinish, repave, cut curb, et cetera, so that we're not just adding on to the amount of work that we're trying to do every year. I think we also need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, that if we're going to make this the vision, that if we're going to subscribe to this as a council, that any time these come up, we have to literally point back at this and say, okay, this is what we agreed to, this is what we want to, this is what we need to keep focused on for continuity purposes. It's an investment. It may cost more.
Well, that's why I think you look backwards at the downtown master plan and you think, okay, the water feature that was going to go through downtown, I don't think anybody would want to, trade what we have now for what was planned in that. So I think it is good that we go back and review those. And when you get to the point where none of it makes sense, that's when you go out and spend the big money to redo the plan. If you're happy with what was built, you adapt the plan to keep it moving forward now.
I do like the idea, though, of a smaller committee, I should say, that is not just this council committee. Get the vested parties in there, get the collaboration of different groups together in there, because I think that's the real success to what you were speaking of, Marty, as far as the chalets going. It's all these different groups that bought into the vision, that suddenly all made this happen and go forward full steam ahead. If we get the buy-in on all the different groups, then all of a sudden we might start seeing some extra efforts and initiatives come into play here.
Yeah, my thought about the $100,000 too was, I think we'll get another plan that says, don't build single-story buildings, build it to the sidewalk and plant trees. And we don't need another plan to tell us to do those things. We just need to do those things. And I think having a committee would be really nice, so that when things do bubble up, when ideas are, sparked, that we have somebody or, some people to say, go, run with that, we've got a ready set of people to assign it with. And I think there's a couple different ways that we could go about prioritizing or figuring out what to do. We could say we prioritize public art and street trees, and we want you to run with that for the first year. Or we could take it block by block and just say, this, we've got these 3 blocks, and they're the most problematic, and we think there's just little tweaks we could make to those blocks, focus on those blocks, and then next year we move on to another block. So we could do it by topic and hope to spread a little bit of art this year, or we could just focus on this block and make it a little bit better this year. So there's different ways we could think about moving forward.
There's also savings in that 100,000 if you just sign up for the email for the articles for Stronger Towns. And Abby's going to have a book club. So.
Okay, so there is a book club in another city on the Strong Towns book, and I don't think the city itself organized it, but I was like, but what if we did? What if we had a book club and we had assigned different chapters and then invited the community to come and chat about it? That would be fun. I just need a book club to force me to read, though, so I'm really interested in being in a book club.
Well, and I think the benefit of that, there are a lot of good ideas that are already tried and true. So why just poach those ideas, make that, but then it'll put our own stamp on it because that's usually what's going to happen, make it fit for our town. But there's no sense in reinventing a lot of the wheel out there. Poach what's going to be good for us, improve it, and make it our own.
And I thought something that we didn't really end up drafting in the conversations, but something that I'd written on the cover of one of the plans was to, instead of having a prescriptive downtown master plan that we hand to the new economic development person and say, run with this, just because the plan was too prescriptive, but to have like a set of value statements, and it could be the goals from the downtown master plan, or something similar to say to the new person in charge of this, this is what we value and this is what we want out of our downtown, can you get on board with this? And if so, yes, you are the right person for the job. And if not, maybe you're not, but can help be the cheerleader and help push some of those measures for us as well, as being the face of downtown development.
And I just want to say one more time that I really appreciate all the hard work that everybody that dedicated to a lot of the putting their time into it. It's a good thing to have plans and drafts and codes and all of that, but if you create it and then just go, that was great, and put it on the shelf and don't do anything about it, it just becomes obsolete and it just sits there. And it's okay to point it out that it exists, but if you're not moving towards it or doing anything about it, it's not really worth anything. It's not worth the money that was spent on it. This, with what you guys did and taking all your time, and I know how much time you guys spent on this, it's really appreciated.
And I think, the streetscape plan and the work done by Alderman O'Brien and Alderman Brown to push that UNERF through, I feel like if we can do that, we can make.
Well, again, as the mayor always says, it was doing it in 2011, there were battles being fought. You remember it also, Dan, you were there, there. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of push and pull. And we got to be prepared to do that. And it works better if everyone is somewhat in agreement that we're all heading in the right direction. And there's no one on the council, and if there is, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but we're all trying to get to that, what's best for our downtown. And I believe, just in my own thoughts, that the streetscapes are going to be the success of our downtown. As I've said, it's a walk through our downtown from one shop to another shop, and people will come to our downtown, and as on River Street, shops will start to come to our downtown also. And a lot of anything that's closed will open up, and I've seen it happen in Plainfield. I've seen it happen in Oak Park where there are streetscapes done, and if a shop closed, another one opened right up. And I think that's going to be the key to our success and our viability is a strong downtown.
Can you send this out to everybody, so that way we have a copy of it? So that way it's easier, to look at it electronically. Because I think this is also something good that, I think you're right, if we do have a committee that's doing this, that we get this in front of us several times a year, so that way we don't forget about it. We don't forget about the things that we said we're going to do, and that we figure out what things we can accomplish each and every year to keep moving it forward and to keep it going. Because there's lots more opportunities there. And, when people come downtown, they don't talk about how wide the sidewalk is or how nice the new curbs look. They talk about the shops that are there, and the plants look great, and that when you walk through it, it does look like a Norman Rockwell scene sometimes, when you're downtown. It's really kind of striking when you step back and I see the old pictures of what was there and think back, wow, it really did look that bad. Or it looks that much better now.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make sure we talk about this in 2 to 3 weeks, give everybody a chance to kind of go through the presentation, but then put this back on to say, okay, what's next? In 2 to 3 weeks, we say, okay, we looked at all the short-term things, which ones do we want to pick off? To Abby's point, do we say, okay, we're going to do an art thing, or do we say, let's pick these 2 or 3 blocks as our next step? So that's what my hope would be, that probably 2 weeks.
2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
March.
We'll start marching that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And thanks to Abby for putting the whole PowerPoint together.
Well, and thanks to Scott Salvati, if he's watching. He pulled all of the images out of all of the plans for us and put the downtown master plan into InDesign too, so that if we ever, it was a Word file that was really hard to deal with. So if we wanted to update it and adopt it, we now have a very pretty version to work from. So thank you, Scott. He's watching. I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, and again, thanks to everybody that was part of the committees to get this stuff done, because it shouldn't all be on one person, and it's really good that everybody stepped up to help. Okay, next up will be project status.
Okay, this afternoon, I received the service agreement for the bike share program for Kane County. And so I forwarded that to the city attorney to review. And then in speaking with Chief Dykey, who is also the staff liaison to the Bicycle Commission, we thought it might be a nice idea to collaborate with all of the other organizations in the community who are also participating in this program. So for instance, the Batavia Park District is also going to be participating in this program. They have allocated resources in their 2020 budget for some bike racks and some bicycles. The library indicated that they really want to have a bike rack at their location, but they did not put money in their budget for to buy any of the bicycles. But still, I think that we should include them in the conversation. And then as well, because I'm sure that we want to locate some of these bicycles in our downtown area, that we want to have Main Street be part of that discussion. And then Alderman Beck responded that from the viewpoint of having an alderman also participate in our committee. So thank you very much for volunteering for that. Now that we've received the service agreement and we're having it reviewed by the attorney, I think it's by the end of March is when we need to have that approved by City Council and indicate the number of bikes that we initially want to have as part of our program. But the other aspects of it that we want to explore is that Kane County has committed that they have $30,000 in grants that they're going to provide based on the number of bikes that are ordered. They're going to allocated evenly throughout the entire geography of the program, so we don't know exactly how much that would translate to, but they're estimating between $1,500 and $2,500 per community to assist with the purchase of the bikes. And remember, we are going to be getting all of the revenue that comes from the rental of those bikes, and then we're going to look at the aspect that we are allowed to sell advertising, both on the bikes and the bike racks themselves. So we hope to be coming back to you very soon with a proposal for where the bicycles would be located, whether we will put them in racks or whether we will do the geofencing that Ryan Peterson was talking about, where we simply mark a pavement area where the bikes may be returned to and considered then they're not in rental mode. So more to come on that. We have actually had a number of discussions over the course of the last week that are related to items on our strategic action plan. Had a meeting with the Village of North Aurora. It just so happens that they have two very similar action items on their strategic plan as we do, and a second bridge and also a road diet on Route 31. So we had very good discussions with them to try to find ways that perhaps we can collaborate on both of those projects. And if there are ways that we can create economies of scale or share costs of engineering, and in order to reduce our costs on those projects, we wanted to do that. So we opened up the discussion, and we do think that there will be opportunities to collaborate on that in the future. Also today, we met with the Batavia Park District, and they brought a consultant, Hitchcock Design Incorporated, who they have been using to assist them with riverfront master planning. And so we wanted to talk to them about how the removal of the Batavia Dam fits into the master planning for the river. And it was a great discussion. You know, we want to look at the future of our river as a focal point right in this presentation, and what we talk about all the time, to appreciate the amazing natural resource that runs through the heart of our city, through the heart of our downtown. And more and more people are experiencing that feature from the water itself, either as kayakers or canoers or fishing in the river. And recognizing those things, as well as projects that are occurring to our north. The city of St. Charles has done a massive amount of work on their master river plan. As well, the city of Geneva has engaged, and both communities, by the way, have used Hitchcock Design, Inc. to help them with projects, but Geneva right now is utilizing Hitchcock to help them with the redesign of the Mill Race property and to do some visioning around what that would look like. It's not a full-blown master plan, but still. And then the Village of North Aurora is working with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. They are ready to begin phase 1 engineering for the removal of their dam. And so you've got all of this activity that's happening up and down the Fox River, and we definitely want to make sure that we are prepared with a plan. So we talked about a very large-scale plan of doing a master plan for our river from south of Wilson Avenue, Wilson Street, all the way up to Fabian Parkway, but to specifically focus on the immediate issue, which is the removal of that dam, either on purpose or if nature decides to do it for us. We really need to be ready to know what is our plan in the event that happens. So basically where we left it was Hitchcock Design is willing to take a look at where the preferred alternative that was identified back in 2004, as well as when the Park District's board came here to meet with City Council in the fall of 2016. That building of the berm across from Duck Island over to the west side, and just to see if that's something that, from an engineering standpoint, still looks like a feasible thing to consider. And then sometime in the second quarter of this year, wanted to bring the feedback from that back to you and determine what an appropriate way forward was, in collaboration, of course, with the Park District. We had a great meeting back in summer of 2018, I believe it was, when we went over to Peg Bond Center and we did some visioning of the future of the river with the Park District. We want to renew that effort and make sure that we're working toward both the larger project of a master river plan, but also with a focus in terms of prioritization on honing in on a commitment to a plan for, if we remove the dam, what happens to that depot pond. And then also with regard to parking, now that we have our logo, there are some ways that we want to use it. We were talking about wayfinding, but, and Abby has brought this up a lot of what is the problem with our downtown parking is a perception issue rather than an lack of availability. And so one of the things that Griffin Price has been working on is a map of our downtown parking, a sign that could be installed at each one of our downtown public parking lots that will show people if there isn't parking available to you here, here are all of the number of different places in our downtown where public parking is available. So we're hoping to be able to install those this year as well. Griffin Price was also over at the high school today, taking pictures of the students as they build the first models of the chalet, and they're coming along very nicely. He said it was really amazing to be there and to see those coming together. So a lot of good work being done on that project. We also had a meeting with Shodine last week with regard to the One Washington Place project. I've been saying that we anticipated that the beginning of the project would occur in May of this year, and that right now, where the project stood was that the developer was going out for the financing of the project. As part of that, they have done some more detailed calculations of the expected increment on the project. And unfortunately, due to the multiple delays that have occurred for this project, it's now getting started 3 years after the TIF was first approved. And ideally, you would want to, on such a large-scale project such as this, where $16 million in bonds were being issued to fund the project, you would have wanted that to begin as soon as possible from when the TIF was implemented. But now, as it stands, we really feel like the timeline in terms of an ability to be able to pay off that amount of bonds, it's just too short based on the expected increments that we think will come from the project. So both the city and the developer are working through various alternatives. And so I think the earliest that this project could possibly begin would be this fall, but it's more likely going to be in the spring of 2021. And so we will be bringing back discussions of what those various alternatives are, but right now we're trying to just do some vetting of the feasibility of those before we even bring them back for discussion, because frankly, the information just came to us last Thursday afternoon. So we'll need some time to work those out. But I'm sure you may have some questions. Dan?
Is it premature to ask if a recasting of the TIF is among the things we can discuss?
Yes. So recasting of the TIF is, there are two different alternatives. Legally, there is a process through which you must go to request an extension on the original TIF, and that can be for up to 12 years. So TIFs are usually 23 years long. They can be extended for up to 35 years. The other alternative would be to re-TIF that area, and it would also offer the opportunity to determine whether it is appropriately bordered or not. In other words, are there other areas of blight that could also be included within that TIF area? You know, now that we have the opportunity to redefine the redevelopment area, would we include other zones as well? So as far as adjustments to the TIF, I think that those are the two alternatives. The other way to adjust would be to adjust the size of the project. So to look at the time remaining on the TIF and what is the level of project that we could afford based on the expected increment during the time that we have left.
Without getting into that huge discussion tonight about bringing the project down, I guess I would just say this much. I'm still a little bit in shock. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that private people have been putting into their storefronts or to their businesses, or decisions that have been made were hinging upon this project happening, and for this project to not happen would be very bad. It would be devastating. So my hope is that we can find a way with Shodine to work this out, and we can find a way with the other taxing bodies who are affected by a TIF extension. I think in the long run, adding 12 years to a TIF is, with the payoff that comes out at the end of this thing, I think there is zero argument with the Premium Outlet Mall in Aurora that everybody benefited from what a wonderful project that is. And I would fear that if this project were to go away, all this hard, good work that was done would be for naught. I just don't want to see that happen.
Alderman Callahan?
I fail to comprehend how this came to us before Thursday. It's not an unknown. Last year, when construction season started and it didn't begin, and the talk was next spring, we've only lost, quote unquote, a year. That should have been a running calculation because nothing's changed. A TIF is finite, and you know you only have so many months. So who dropped the ball in not watching it, going, at what point was a project manager not saying this was no longer going to start becoming viable? Because until this point, we have been told is a go, it is a go, it is a go in the spring. And all of those things have not changed. So it is extremely frustrating to now all of a sudden consider additional options or wait for options, which is more time, which is more delay, when I don't know how it got to here, because there's not been this sense. There was questions that were asked. Are we still going? It doesn't look like. People are talking in the community about doesn't appear to be any movement. There doesn't appear to be any momentum in it. Nobody's seeing anything. And to now say that we learned of it, I don't see it. I can't justify it because nothing's changed from when they didn't put shovels in ground last May to now. It's not like it went into a black hole in a vacuum. The clock continued to tick, and at some point in there, somebody should have been saying, well, where is it? And that's why when I had asked what the off-ramps are for Shodine at this point, it would be that he can't get financing. Well, that should have been in place a long time ago. And I don't think at this point the developer would want out there in the development community, oh, I can't get financing. That should have been lined up, because when the very first delay as to the overruns happened, when this vote changed from a near unanimous to 50-50, it was said, we didn't anticipate those things. And we made changes to the redevelopment agreement as a result of that. I don't know any new costs, because that was when the pencil to the paper was put. We underestimated the costs. We've reevaluated it. This is what we need to make the project succeed. We took a vote on it. It went and passed at that point. Has any additional costs come in, any additional construction costs come in where that has changed?
No, it was the delay that was caused by the environmental issue, and until the Illinois EPA was willing to sign off on our remediation plan, they were unable to secure financing. And we also had to negotiate that a bank would be willing to accept the city's promise that it would be solely responsible for getting the NFR letter from IEPA. And then we also had to negotiate now, instead of the city, in the original RDA, the city was responsible for providing a clean site to the developer. In other words, all remediation had been completed. But now that we were so far down the road and up against, our backs against the wall, timing-wise on the TIF, we determined that it would save time by not mobilizing two different contractors, the city's responsibility to do demolition and the excavation necessary for remediation, and then to shut that down and have the developer bring in their own contractor to complete the remaining excavation. And that's why we ended up with the second restated and amended redevelopment agreement, which was really the third version of the redevelopment agreement. And it wasn't until the beginning of December 2019 when IEPA approved our remediation agreement. So to your point, could they have been doing these calculations all along? But from the developer's perspective, if the IEPA was not going to go along with the remediation plan, then that would have been a waste of money.
But that's where, I think that's my point, is at what point on last May, when shovel was supposed to go in the ground, it had 21 years at that point, and the dollar cost was, pulling out a number because I don't remember exactly, 16 million. And they would have known that they would have had to have made to pay that note back within that 21 years. What's the difference between now knowing that it's at least a year? That should have been weighed in the factoring for budgeting, for thinking and planning and mobilizing. All of those things could be considered, well, we're not going to be able to do it this year, so next year, this is what it's going to cost us. We lose a year, but that's going to be, we're going to be in a spot a year from now going, you should have known that a year ago. If you lose a minimum of a year, is it anticipated that it would not have been able to pay back? And we were told, yes, it was able to be paid back. And so I don't know what new factors that would not have been properly anticipated as of last May. It doesn't seem logical to me.
I guess the logic that I applied to it was we added into one of the redevelopment agreement changes that there would be an SSA on the property if there was not enough increment created in the 23 years or 21 years or 20 years, whatever the time frame was after it got built, that would then be applied to that property and that property only in a form of an SSA to raise their taxes to make that difference up.
Mm-hmm.
So if it started 6 months or 18 months later, that would be paid back at the back end by the property as an SSA. I think what may have happened or what may be happening is the developer feeling like they're not going to be able to market those units with that SSA hanging out there, knowing that if they don't start that SSA right away, there's no way you can't wait till 20 years from now to add that SSA on there to make up that last $2 million or $3 million or $5 million or whatever the number is on top of that. They'd have to start that right away. So then you take the price point of the unit and bring it up to here because you got taxes that are going to be on it to make that difference up on the SSA. And that may be, I don't know. I don't have them sitting here, so I can't ask that. But that's how I think of it. And that's, again, Marty, I'm with you that I think it's poor planning that you didn't know that, hey, you're going to make $20 million in 21 years, but if you go 20 years, you're only going to make $18 million. There's a $2 million difference there that you're going to have to come up with.
And that's why the marketing is irrelevant to future buyers. It's an apartment complex with one entity that's the SSA. That's it. Right, they need to make it. They can worry about selling it at the end, but they are responsible for that SSA. That's been my whole point about this thing from day one. It pays itself back. We belt and suspended it to make sure there was no risk to the community.
That was our insurance policy.
That was it.
But that's if it gets built.
And we still have that.
If-
Yeah, we still
Correct.
have that. The problem is, and it's not a problem, it's always been there since the very beginning, is that they have off-ramps to the project too. So it just simply doesn't get built.
I don't mind.
But
I
they
don't
held us
mind-
hostage for the last 8 months.
I
They
don't-
knew the numbers didn't
Yep.
change, like you say.
Right. I don't mind their off-ramps of it, but we've got our land that we can't use because we're waiting for them to decide what they're going to do. And there are unknowns that are true unknowns, but there are knowns that is their line of business.
And financing is easier today than it's been through the whole process of.
That said, no bank was going to touch that property until that last issue was taken care of. They wouldn't even start underwriting until that last thing was
Well,
taken
and
care
I think if we're in this situation and we have to move forward and we have to think about redoing a TIF, I think there's other areas within sight of that property that needed to be
Yes.
added into that. There's other empty properties, there's other properties for sale that could all avail themselves of TIF possibilities by just expanding that basically 2 blocks.
But then we should open it up to other developers.
I think if we get to that point, that's going to be the hard discussion we're going to have.
At this point, I would like to, further vet these possibilities and bring this back for another discussion, at which, of course, you could decide to extend the TIF. You could decide to re-TIF, but if you decide to re-TIF, the most important question in that is if you do that with this developer, is there, do we think there's enough increment that's going to come off of the project in 23 years that will be sufficient?
And right now, they're already extending it a year. What else are we gonna do to every other surrounding business in the downtown by pushing this off? We just screwed everyone else out for another year of development down there that they're counting on. Shodine did that.
Yeah, we didn't do it. It was the developer.
We bought some
There are
expensive
plenty of
land.
businesses on North River Street who are, they actually would love for the construction to be
But let's not
pushed
push it off a
but
year.
Well, nobody wants the construction, but everyone wants the end result.
yes,
Keep
exactly.
putting it off, we're gonna end up with the downtown just like we have it today, without any growth, without any.
It's true,
new
and that's
businesses.
something that should be part of the analysis, is if we decide to go for an extension of the TIF and we keep it with this project, and that has the ability, does that have the ability to go forward faster than saying, forget it, let's plant the sign on the redevelopment site and see what comes our way? I would estimate a minimum of 2 years before that construction would get underway, just because of what it takes to both market, negotiate a redevelopment agreement, and get that
It's the
construction
right-
underway.
They should not be rewarded for
Yeah,
what they've done to us.
You'll pardon if I feel like that actually might be a faster turnaround time than
Yeah.
this thing, which has been continually one thing after another, one more delay after another, one more hiccup or oversight after another. It's ridiculous.
Alan,
Yes, Your Honor?
I just want to make that observation. I certainly, I haven't said anything here because I've been talking with Laura every day about this thing, as she's been trying to put this together or pick up the pieces or whatever you want to describe it. I find myself sitting here tonight, and Alderman Callahan and Alderman Wolf, I'm probably pretty much in agreement with you guys on what you just said as far as how this thing has kind of come apart and come undone in a lot of respects. I guess what I would like to encourage us to do is give Laura and the staff a couple of weeks to kind of fret this thing out, and let's once and for all come to a final conclusion as to, is there really any room to work here? Is there something that can be done? Is there some way we rework this and maybe do it a little bit different or whatever? And then if it doesn't, we can't make it, you guys are the ones who are gonna make the decision, but I think would be fair to everybody involved, just to give it a couple more, 2 or 3 weeks and let's see what we can figure out here, and then, a couple hour meetings from now, we'll have dedicate the night to this conversation, and let Laura and the staff put on a presentation to you, and then it's up to you guys to make the decision as to where you want to go. And I will tell you that I certainly have been in the room with them expressing kind of the same sentiments you've expressed here tonight, so I don't think they're sitting there thinking that they're going to go some different way. They're just trying to determine what can be salvaged, what won't work, what will work, and are we going to be able to finally do something, or is it time to cut the bait and go down the road? Because I certainly share the sentiments. We've got a lot of neat things happening in downtown Batavia right now, and I certainly don't want to start sending the message that, well, we were promising you this new deal and it didn't come together, and, we got to do what we need to do to bring this thing to as solid a perspective as we can. And, in the meantime, going along with what Alderman Beck has been saying tonight about the streetscape, and Alderman I'm sitting here almost every week getting a call from some other neighboring city wanting to come to Batavia and look at all this neat stuff we're doing here. I mean, we're on the front page here in the minds of a lot of people about the stuff that we're doing in Batavia with how are you getting all those stores to move into your downtown, and how are you starting to, do a farmer's market in your downtown on a Saturday morning, and all this. So we're giving tours here on a regular basis with other cities, and I could name them, but I won't, because some of them probably don't want it out that the city mayor and the city administrator and others are over in Batavia nosing around trying to figure out what are our secrets here. So I guess I got to tell you, I think we're doing some things right here. But, we just got this glitch in the road here right now that we got to kind of either say, okay, we can make this work, or we're going to have to say, no, it isn't, and thanks for your efforts, and we need to get down the road. I don't want to carry this on much longer, but I think it's fair to everybody involved that we just kind of take a final look at it and see where we should go.
I fully agree, and I think that's why, the thinking that I would like more in line is not this hem and haw and try to do this and try to do that. Figure out what the problem is, readjust it, reevaluate it, make the corrections, exactly like one of the investments that's gone in, Oak and Swine. Amazing what they did. They put something in, they invested a lot of time, they reevaluated when things maybe needed some shifting, they switched their business model around, they took some time, they shut it, reopened, and it's amazing. That's the thinking that needs to go into this from forward.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. We've been making some right decisions. The city's moving forward. But for the last 4 years now, we've been messing around with this. And in the last few months, to Marty's point, we've been asking, any off-ramps for these guys? My fear is they want to back out. And no, they're drawing up plans, we're being told. Well, now there's no plans, and now they're looking to get financing. I mean, we just want to know what's going on and get to what the meat of the matter is. And we're not getting there. So.
Well, you've been a leader in this whole thing since it started. I mean, of all of them sitting here, you're the one that's now got some tenure, and you've been one of the big mouthpieces of promoting this.
I've been a proponent, absolutely.
You certainly have been, and I commend you and thank you for that, because you really have helped keep this thing alive, and specifically River Street and all that had to go in there, and certainly Houston Street and all the stuff that we've brought in here, which is all the magic now that all these other towns are wanting to come in here and look at. And we show them what it used to look like and what it looks like today, and they see the people here. It's, whoa, how, this is what every city's trying to do, and a lot of us can't. And then we got some, emulating us already. I can see it kind of taking place. I'm very proud of what the Batavia Bike Commission's done on this bicycle idea. I'm not going to name names, but I'm told there are some of our people in the neighborhood here, other cities, that aren't going to do it. So again, Batavia is going to be kind of the leader in, of course, we were the first ones to put the bike trails through on both sides of the river and downtown, and others didn't do that, but we did it. And I think now we're the ones with 5,000 bicycle riders in town on a good weekend. So, I don't think we've we sit in here sometimes and criticize, maybe we should, and second guess ourselves to some degree. But at the end of the day, all of you should be fairly pleased by what has been brought in here and how we're doing it. And I give Laura a lot of credit for trying to hold it together as long as she can so that she can see, is there really something that we can really do here, or is it time to go on down the road and start all over? And if we have to go down the road and start all over, I am very optimistic that there may very well be some other interesting ideas that will be on the table real quick with people that will say, well, I've already seen what Batavia can do here, and I'd like to come in here and propose I do this on that property. So,
Well, my concern is this, is that, you know, everyone's working hard at it. We've been working at it for a lot of years. We've invested a lot of time and tax dollars in this project, okay? But for the last 12 years, we've been trying to do something with that property, and we've failed. We've not been able to do anything with that property. And I'm afraid if this falls through the cracks, and someone else coming in is going to go through the whole round. I mean, we've got things done now. We got the cleaning up of the contaminated soils. We took the building down, so things have been done. So it's more of a clean slate. But it's still, my concern is trying to get somebody in and try to get the belt and suspenders that we have on this project here. I think that's going to be hard pressed, and so I don't want this to go. And if we do that again, it's going to further delay breaking ground for another 3 or 4 years. And to everyone's point, you know, we had businesses investing for this project, and I just don't want to do that to businesses who've put their faith in the council and in the city of Batavia.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that this thing hasn't been approved. I mean, you know, we had some heavy political weight flying around here for a while, but it's a done deal. And, you know, I don't necessarily, that's the reason I want Laura and the staff to take a real strong look at this done deal we got, and is there still some way that we can make this work? I don't just want to immediately throw the baby out with the bathwater right here.
We don't
right
want to
now.
do that. I agree.
I'm looking at the calendar right here, and I see 3 weeks will put us at the 3rd of March for the 3rd of March for our COW meeting. You want to set that as a deadline for when we want an answer back?
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, I would agree to that. One thing I'd like to say is, being on the lending end, when there's an environmental issue, nobody wants to touch it. And I guarantee no bank would even look at it or put the work in that's involved on getting that loan approved. And Shodine probably didn't want to put forth all the documents and work that they had to do as well. So that was a sticking point. So I really don't think that they did act in good faith, but I don't think that anything proceeded until after we had that environmental issue resolved.
And which was early December.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So now it's mid-February. How long does it take to get
Numbers
approval?
didn't change in that time. The numbers didn't change.
Again,
I agree on the
we knew it had to
process, the
generate
numbers didn't change.
$20 million in a finite amount of time. They knew that they were going to do that. If they had to wait a year to get that approval, that was going to change how much money they could create in the same amount from the TIF.
A
So
simple
they knew
spreadsheet
those
will
numbers
tell
up
you.
front. Everybody knew those numbers. That's the reality of it.
Even if they came to us and said, you know what, I'm concerned, because we're not gonna get approved until this,
Yeah.
and said that, no, we're digging, we're shovels hit the ground when the ground thaws. This is the 4th time they've come back to us in this process.
And there's
We
no-
wanna wait around for another time for them to do it again.
Yep,
We're gonna do that.
and that's a big concern. They've done it this many times. Are they going to continue to do it?
They don't have
Well,
any
we'll-
more things they can do.
You never know.
We thought that 3 months ago.
What else they got left? They're literally at the place where they're about to put a shovel in the ground. That's the last thing they have to do, is actually lift some soil.
And
else can
they do have another very similar project underway in Oswego. It had similar challenges getting started as well, but they're full speed ahead on that project.
They've
So,
done a lot of projects.
right.
I believe the one in Geneva as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that project's doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many.
Yeah, maybe they're over.
They're like, put the brakes on.
Yeah.
So I will bring this back on March 3rd.
And do we have any others?
Oh, I just had one more question for Laura.
Yes.
So hopefully less controversial. The I remember on our phone call with the IDNR, he thought that the channel flow went on the west side of Duck Island. So, and I don't know if that's in our original documentation we have from X amount of years ago, that plan. So I don't know how far we want to have them investigate that if that channel flow is there, because the berm would have to go like from around the gazebo across rather than to Duck Island, because that would cut off the river.
As I remember, there's two different designs that they had. One, depending on what you did with Duck Island, the berm either went above it or right even with it, and that directed the channel back to the east side of the river. Or there was structures, actually they had multiple structures upriver that were diverting the flow to the east side of the river, which is one of the things that I didn't like about that, because they ended up putting more concrete back in the river
Yes, that gets rid-
than what they were taking out from the dam. So
And
there will, I'm sure, will be some new data that they'll have to get on what the river flows are now and where the channel actually is out there.
And
Because it does flow down the west side of the river from Fabian Parkway, probably 4 or 5 blocks south. It's all on the west side,
Yeah.
the channel.
and then they just need to look at, it would be cheaper for us, for anybody, when they remove the dam, to not haul that stuff off site, to use all
Right.
that for the berm.
Yes.
So,
Somewhere at home, I do have that plan. And I was also looking for that, and that was one of the things I was gonna bring up under others, is the Park District. There's been a lot of social media stuff flying around about the Park District, and the city's making a statement that we didn't want that property to come off the tax rolls, or didn't want the Park District to use that for any kind of facility. I think, and you can correct me, Mayor, if you remember, I thought we had a position statement on that property that was done after neighborhood groups got together when that property became available, or originally when they tore the stuff down, that the city wanted to see mixed-use development on it. That was our goal on that, and it was a listing of acceptable things we thought could be out there.
And we zoned it residential.
Right, and that was, the thought was that that would be some type of mixed use along, the Van Ortwick between Wilson and McKee Street, that would be part, of a mixed use spot, and then the further west you went on the property, that it would be more residential.
I don't want to get into this
Right,
social media thing, but, I've had a lot of people talk to me in the last couple of weeks about it and whatever. I think the big misnomer out there at the moment is the reference to it as the Siemens property.
Right.
I don't think that's right. I don't think that property, a large amount of that property is not owned by Siemens. They have a lease on it for an X number of years, but that lease is going to go away, and it may be a few years yet before it does, and that, I think, is one of the complicating factors. And then when it goes back to the owners, I think there's multiple owners through family inheritances and whatever have you. So that's going to be a very challenging piece of property to put together. And the piece that's right up there on Van Noordwijk from McKee Street south is owned by Siemens. Because they've been in my office and shared that with me. They also own the piece on the north side of McKee Street that goes up to Storm School. There's a little tree land, that's also owned by Siemens. But the biggest portion of that property, which is this view you get on McKee Street and you look toward Wilson and you see this big piece of empty land there, that's this family ownership thing that's there, that's going to take a while for anybody to put that together and negotiate how that's all going to get bought. And, this lease is there and that's generating money to these folks. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this thing that don't make it real easy for anybody, whatever your idea is, to do anything with that property right at the moment. And a day does not go by in my life these days that I don't get somebody here in my face asking me the questions about that particular piece of property. And I don't know if there's an answer to it, quite frankly. I mean, there's just a lot of loose ends there that are going to have to be brought together before you get it. And then there's the family owns property further to the west that some of them may still reside on parts of it, or own some of it, or use it for something. There's a lot of moving stuff there that is not easily going to be quickly resolved, I would tell you.
Not until there's a for sale sign, which there's
Right.
not, never has.
Right, right. And
It's all speculation on somebody's private.
right? And people, it's amusing to me almost, when I hear what people are saying on social media about it. And people just kind of show their lack of understanding or their knowledge of what really is happening, because there's a lot of moving parts on that thing that don't make it really easily accessible.
Anybody else have any others?
I move we adjourn.
Oh, we have to go to executive session first. So you move, we go into executive session? Is that what you just said?
I like Mike's motion.
Yeah. Well, we got to do the other one first. So we have a motion by O'Brien
Executive session.
for executive session. Mike. And a second by Meitzler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Quick break here, and then we'll go into executive session. Change it.